Welcome back to our session about the tests, bad tests, good tests, and now why do we write tests that are not so good. We covered a couple of topics last time. Let's dig into the remainder of them. Bart, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was wondering about how much is like incompetence a factor? As in, I guess in the whole strategy of things, incompetence is just. I think the problem probably there then is maybe that people might get too much responsibility too soon or something like that.
So, incompetence as in not enough skills or not enough training
Yeah,
for the task as a whole in the industry, as a average level. That's
yeah,
what you are saying.
yeah.
Which is probably not necessarily only about the tests, I would say, right?
No, well, I think it's about a test, as in that the way you write tests is vital to your broader software engineering strategy. Maybe what I'm saying is that the relevance of test is too underplayed in the way we train software engineers.
Yes, I think that's here. I will
Right.
definitely agree with you. That was on the top of my remainder items. The education, example, textbooks, and so on. So when you open blog posts or examples, it's very rarely that you will see how you test this
Yeah.
framework or something. Over the
Yeah.
time, when it becomes very major, then the tools appear. But it's usually very, very, very small, often, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
Mhm.
Our knowledge sharing is basically not test driven yet.
Yes, and I understand some reasons for that because you can build this testing strategy very differently. So often it's okay how you want to test in which context do you be testing my framework or my library. I don't know. That's why I'm not giving you an examples. But because it's all often omitted, makes impression that they are not that important, or as long as you do something, that you are fine.
I'm just thinking about that a unit test or an integration test is usually a really concrete example of how to use a specific library. So that actually would make just having like a code snippet there of a test that uses a particular library would actually make that a really good way to communicate use cases of a library. So I I think it's a bit of a double missed opportunity in that sense.
I think I saw some cases where they were starting with examples, but that was mostly on exceptions, right? And I'm thinking now, why doesn't it pick up? There should be natural reasons for that, right? It's
Yeah.
not just because people are so uneducated or don't know the value or don't get the values of the test. There are still some underlying reasons for that. Probably one of the reasons I would expect for this underrepresentation of the test code and the examples in the literature and so on is that testing is difficult. By just adding the examples of tests readable and expressive, you're complicating a lot because tests are naturally
Yeah,
more
yeah,
difficult.
yeah, and there's quite a lot of context that you need to know in order to understand a unit test. I mean, its run environment is uh, considerably more complicated than the run environment of a main class.
Yeah, so you need to be able to read. That's why I'm thinking that practical examples, are usually structured more about REPL. So okay, I call this and this is output. I call this is output. They are not using exactly the tools most of the time that you will be using in Java, especially world.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different per language. I remember that when I was studying Go, I was surprised that they had lots of emphasis on interpreting the comments as an examples what you're expecting as an output of this script. So they would be trying to build this living documentation. So you have a method, test method, you can document it in the documentation. It will be saying something and say example output, and that will be assessed against the output example as the output of this method when it runs std out. But it's a little bit situational,
like doc tests that Python has
something
as well.
like that. Yes.
And that's probably because they kind of built the run environment for the tests into the language itself. Then I guess.
Yeah, that's coming also with the language, and that's both upside and downside. So on one hand, out of the box, you have something already.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, especially with Go example, because it's so opinionated, very quickly you can find that it's not what you really want, and you still want to have something else, and then you're not using this nice feature.
The fact that it's there does, I guess, make it easier to use that as your base case for explanation.
Yeah, that's a very good point, that you have these basics that's already there, and by default, because everybody who's writing Go in this case,
exactly,
you can assume that they at least read the first introduction. In the first introduction, they say how to run those tests and how to interpret it. They will at least have a clue what it is about. It's not like someone say, "Oh, what is this? I have never used assert_j, for example. I got used to the other notation, and that's why it's not readable for me," or vice versa with Harmcast.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So basically what we're saying is that part of the reason that we write bad tests in Java is that Java does not have a native testing framework.
Well, not that straightforward. You have omitted a couple of steps, but you can build a chain, slightly weak chain, not very straightforward, but some chain of reasoning that can go into this direction. Yes.
Yeah.
But okay, if we're talking about more reasons than when we do have the examples, when we do have people starting talking about TDD especially, then they might go instantly over the top and make an impression that you need to do so much difficult steps and so much thorough TDD testing just to start with. They say, I don't want to go that.
Yeah,
so
I think this is a particularly
black-white
TDD.
Yes.
Yeah.
In TDD discussions. That's another reason I see, one of the causes that adds to this state where we are.
What you would call that, I guess that's like dogmatism about that particular approach. That you say, my way is the only way.
I think it's a little bit even more difficult. Part of that is dogmatism.
Right.
And that's what I wanted also to cover. But a little bit part of that, because it's normally so underrepresented, that when someone starts to talk, you need to cover so many topics in one go that it becomes instantly overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then we'll say, that's a little bit too much. Let's just go how we use normally. And that's my next point. It's like a mantra or cargo cult testing. When we say, everybody knows that we need to have some automated tests, but we don't talk much about how we do that. We just need to have them. And then there are some urban memes or something. You just need to have a simple unit. It will be fine. As long as you have some tests, how you write simple tests. You will mocking everything, because otherwise it becomes difficult to track dependencies. We have tests. Are they helping? Sometimes. Sometimes they do help. Well, they do help in any case, but are they effective or not?
Yeah, so that's what you mean, cargo cult. Like, the tests are just there because people say they need tests.
Yeah, because it's very difficult now to argue. You need to really have a strong opinion to say, no, we don't need tests. Even I'm doing, no, we don't need to have unit tests here. I would rather cover it with integration tests or something. Say, this test doesn't make sense to me, for example. That's what I often try to argue, to show, at least to drive to refactoring of the course for disability, something like that. But you need to really want to do, and by default, Go following the least resistant path, you just say, I'm doing some tests. I have tests, 100% coverage.
That's really interesting. You almost need a better understanding of a subject to say no to it than to say yes to it. Because that's accepted fact that you need tests. Exactly. And I see this a lot with interviews at Paul.com, where people say it's like, I should be doing TDD. And then I'm like, okay, why should you be doing TDD? What is it that TDD gives you? And then It's like because tests are good.
Because everybody says that it's cool.
Yeah,
Because I think you
exactly,
like
exactly.
TGG. I think
Yeah.
I think you like
Yeah.
TGG. Then I will say that you like TGG.
Yeah,
yes.
and I think this cargo cult aspect is a part of that. Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's, I think, I now that I'm thinking about it, it makes actually writing good tests or teaching writing good tests or working together with a team even more difficult. It's
Yeah.
just because there is already so much noise of this cargo cult. Then
Yeah.
to get through that to real values becomes more difficult.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So the subjects that we've covered so far is that we don't use tests as a baseline in documentation and teaching, which means that it doesn't become the de facto standard, and therefore we don't consider it a first-class citizen in our code. Essentially,
It's underrepresented basically
underrepresented
for
indeed.
various
Yeah.
reasons, but that's
Yeah.
what adds to this.
Yeah, and then the other part is this cargo cult aspect where everyone's just saying, "Oh yeah, we should have tests," but no one is really going in why, what they're adding. Well, not no one, but not enough people are going into the particular benefit that specific types of tests give them, and a clear reasoning for why some of them are necessary in some cases and others aren't.
Yes. And
Cool.
that it's still a difficult topic.
Yes,
The
yes.
tests.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. I think we've covered why we write bad tests quite well now. Also, I think we want to wrap up this whole what makes tests good, what makes tests bad episode now, so that we can veer a little into other aspects of software engineering. We will be coming back at some point with an episode where we go into some of the awesome comments and feedback that we've got. But for us now, I think this was the last episode for a while at least about writing automated tests, and I've had a lot of fun. I think we've came to some great insights, and I think next subject is the solid critiques.
Yes, let's do the solid.
Excellent. Let's go there. Okay, so thanks a lot, everyone.